Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we're gonna talk about the last center because actually I thought a little bit about this when I realized how like rare the heart center is. Like just in general, right? Like most people are like so we talked a lot in Enneagrammer about like, what it's like to be in a world that's like majority sexual blind, right? That's like apparent.
Mhm.
Um, and also majority say attachment forward, with the exception of maybe seven. But we're also kind of in a world where it's majority like gut predominant and then head, and specifically like six,
Mm.
seven area. And heart center in
Mhm.
general is just kind of it's rare to find a heart type, and it's even rare to find somebody who has heart even second.
As a person that is attachment forward and sexual blind and heart last and head middle, all that kind of stuff. Though I'm the standard here. At least to me,
Right.
it is like very obvious when I see anything else. It's like second,
Hmm.
heart second already feels pretty different to me. Like having a head having to me it just feels normal. To me it just feels like where it's supposed to be. Like you're taking in your sensory information and then you're thinking about it and then you're filtering it through your identity. So
Right.
people that do that first or second, that always is kind of um, that is pretty forward tell to me.
Yeah. What are you guys' thoughts about the quality of attention when it comes to heart last? Since both me and Alexander have heart last, and Joseph, you have it heart first. One way I see it with my best friend who's heart second is that
Hmm.
there is a way that when I'm talking to her, I do get a lot out of it. Like I do get a lot of the. Oh my gosh,
Sorry, I don't know
she's
what my
disappeared.
camera's doing.
It's if
I'm
you
just
go
like,
into the oh, it's fine.
I wanted to find a hat, but then I couldn't find it. Anyway, my hair is like going all sorts of fucking ways. Okay, yeah. So my friend is heart second. I'm heart last, and I've actually gotten a lot of feedback from her in terms of just like how if we've talked about this at length, the last fix, and from her side, having heart second, she feels like sometimes I'm not listening to her, or like really
Mm,
emotionally feeling it. And from my side,
mm,
I am
yeah,
feeling it and I am trying to show care through
right.
doing the seven thing of like, I'm deeply intensely listening. That feels like the head center,
Yeah.
and
mm,
like going on the roller coaster of whatever she's going through. And then also the nine secondary is like I'm holding space, like
mm,
I'm gonna stay there with you and I'm going to absorb everything that's happening. But then the heart last thing is I'm not really appreciating the emotional landscape that she's creating, and like I'm not honoring it or something.
Yeah.
Um and I took that in, and I actually see it everywhere now. I see it a lot, and
mm.
I've tried to
That's
do some
interesting.
work
Yeah.
around the heart thing. Yeah, heart last thing.
Yeah, that comes up for me most of the time with head types. I don't think it's because they're less emotionally engaged than gut types. It's just that nines can do this like imitation of like understanding your heart
Mm-hmm.
space just because they're understanding your whole being in this sense. Whereas like head is
Mm-hmm.
like there's a lot of me happening now because of my words and my thoughts and talking and connecting, and so it can seem like they're not really listening to you, which they might not be, or they might be actually very much listening to you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's true. And I have a little bit of a theory as well, because I think that I shut down when I feel overwhelmed in the heart center, or
Mm.
like it's
Hmm.
just there's a lot of things going on. And I actually can see that with all the last centers, is that when there's an overwhelm, like for me as a head type, when I have like a lot of like overwhelming thoughts and like I spill out, and I let people go into that process with me.
Yeah.
And I see with the head last, they actually kind of shut down as well. They get more
Mm.
quiet, more quiet, more quiet. So I can see that happening with me with the heart last stuff, where it's like when I feel the most, ironically, is when I'm like the most like stone faced.
Mhm.
Like,
Mm, mm.
yeah,
Yeah, I relate to that too, for sure. Yeah, there is a
yeah,
sense of like not wanting to be overwhelmed by it. And then being nine core, I'm just kind of like trying to calm it down, calm it down, calm it down
yeah,
so that I
Yeah.
can be present for you again.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then speaking to like nine in particular, because I don't think one or eight can do this. I think it's particular to nine. I think nine can do the pseudo emotional understanding because we're reading your energy and we're sensing
Hmm.
into like the frequency, but it's not necessarily um, we're just accommodating the energy that happens to be disrupted by whatever the heart thing is that's going on. You know what I mean? Versus
Yeah.
like engaging with the heart space itself.
Most of the time, nines make you feel like they're really emotionally absorbing you because nines their automatic impulse is to calm everybody down, which honestly, like 80% of the time is what people want and need secretly. Like you're just like, okay, I really do kind of want to be grounded right now. But where nines fail is the time you're just like, I don't want to calm down. I don't want to, like, I want you to get riled up with me. I want you to feel this, this emotional landscape I'm creating, this energy. And all you're trying to do is kind of like either shut it, like push it somewhere else, or like take it away from me. And it's like, this is, if you're a heart type, you're like, this is important. This is what I do. This is my whole job on this earth, is to create this negative emotional landscape for you. So it's like, speaking of which, we were talking about, I just released that blog post where we were trying to talk about like reactive or whatever. And one of the things that reactive types are doing is like uncovering hidden truths in their center and like ripping them up. Right. And so for four, just to talk about emotional landscape, because I can speak to four, is that like, my thought is that I'm creating an emotional landscape because I don't know the truth about you unless you're negative with me. If you are always positive and you are always skating over kind of just like if you can't even, and I'm not even talking about even positive types. Like I know 7s, 9s, DJs who can be like, I hate that girl, she's a bitch. And I'm like, oh, fine. Like I need that, I need you to tell me what pisses you off. Yeah. And I'm doing that by like creating my own image center energy of self of like, okay, well, this again, unconsciously, but like, this is me, this is my energy. If I want to really connect with you, this is how I'm going to know where you are.
Yeah. Reactivity also, we talked about this recently too. Reactivity also is provoking reactions in the other person. So it's like setting the stage to provoke the other person's location also. So in that case, it would be 4 laying a landscape of like, this is gross, this is bad, this sucks, to see where you are agreeing or disagreeing, to find your no's. I feel like reactive types largely find the other person's locations through what they are also reacting to.
Yeah.
So
6s will be like, complain with you.
Exactly.
We can get into like they'll just be like, don't you think it's weird that person over there did that thing? And all of a sudden you're like, okay, this person's with me. Like they're 6s hate when you just kind of like, I don't know, everything happens for a reason. Or like, no,
it's really fine.
Yeah.
You want to watch a 6 go ballistic? Just tell them it's probably fine.
Yeah. Oh,
you're overthinking it.
There's nothing there. Yeah. Nothing in the dark. People are really good underneath. So anyway, but back to the energy thing. You know how you were saying earlier, Alexandra, that like it seems normal that you'd process in your body and then think and then feel or whatever. It's just kind of like do you know how it took me? So when I first started learning the Enneagram, I had no fucking clue what the gut center was. Like you could explain it to me until I was blue in the face, and I was like, I don't know what that means. I understand heart. I understand head. I don't know what the fuck like my arm. What the fuck is body? I don't know what, like, I just didn't understand. What is this doing? It took me so long to understand, when I really started to understand, okay, like sort of boundaries of like, what is me and and maybe part of it is because I don't have a 9 fix, so I don't have this blurred boundary. Like I'm sort of in my like kind of intense boundary space, and I just always thought that was normal, and that's also a thing where like most people are not 1 fix. But to me it's like when I'm talking to it's more obvious with 2s or 4s, right? But when I'm talking to them, it's just kind of like, okay, which one of our landscapes is going to have the most intense coloring? Like, are we going to fight over this? Are we going to fight over who gets to, you know what I mean? Because if I'm in the room with like a really intense 2 fixer, it's just kind of like, we're not doing this love shit. We're
there's
not,
a war.
And it's like almost with 3, you can kind of go, like you can kind of pull them in one direction. Like 3 will kind of adapt to you, especially 3 with 4, like kind of just like, it's, I can get there with you. But if we're in that like 2 space, it's just kind of like, it's hard. Not that 2s can't be negative. Like 2s actually can be, and 2 fixers can be super negative. But the people I find that are most negative with 2 fixers that I know are like 6s. So they're already doing reactivity with me.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't even know what I started this. Was that even what we were talking about?
No, it does. It makes sense because it's like, I remember at one point we were talking about this years ago or something. And you said something like, it makes sense that the heart center is the most rare because you kind of need somebody to be setting the mood in a room. And if there's too much heart in a room, then it's just confusing. It's not, it's not good for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can kind
Yeah,
of
the
do
heart
the gut
center.
center thing with collectively,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like the body center is to me the most objective. Like obviously there's subjectivity in every center,
Hmm.
but the body center, like the gut center, seems to be the most expressed in like tangibility or most ground like rooted in something that can be like literally right there. And there's
Yeah.
kind of gray area here because that could be confused for self-pres. But then when we go into the head center, I feel like the head center has wiggle room because you can kind of work with the head center to get to something objective or to get to something like agreed upon or something like that. Like
Yeah.
there's wiggle room there. It can be, you
It's
can argue
motion.
in separate directions or you can be convinced in one direction. Um, where the heart center comes in, the heart center seems the most rooted in subjectivity, which is why it almost has to be last. Because if everybody's leading with their own
Yeah.
subjective experiences, then how's anything gonna move forward
Right.
or
Yeah.
get done or work together or whatever? Especially if everybody's working in their own in their own subjectivity, their own like identity, image stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, one other thing I might even say about, I'm trying to figure out how to frame this, but it is the most like egotistical center in the sense that, and so again, making sense that it's not going to be most people. We do sort of need most people to just do jobs and do like just like from an evolutionary, like we need to like, okay, like you
Mm-hmm.
pass me this, I'll pass you this, okay, cool, I'm working with you, I'm working like you can't have even threes, like you can't have people that are sitting around all day painting pictures of themselves and trying to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
Right.
actually, like
I
threes, for
love that
example.
image of threes
Yeah, well, it's not.
painting pictures of themselves and trying to sell it.
That's to me, that's what the heart center is. Like, really, that's all
Yeah.
it's doing. Fours are
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
useless. Like, four is you. It's not, and I don't mean that even in a bad sense. I don't think that being useful matters, right? Like, that's the whole point of
Mm-hmm.
four. Like, I'm not here to be useful. Twos do so much because they have the super ego around like being like providing for people, and threes are really efficient. But there is still this thing of like all three of these energies can be really intrusive in a space that's kind of going like a machine, where it's just like, you know. We have something to do, or we have something to think about, or we have ideas. Like it's like think about how many spaces the emotional center just like trips everything up. Where it's like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
okay, we're having a philosophical
Mm-hmm.
discussion, and then somebody has an emotion, and it's kind of like, oh, now we're doing your thing, or like
Mm-hmm. It's
we're working,
personalizing.
personalizing,
Mm-hmm.
we're working, we're doing something, we're doing a job, and all of a sudden somebody's like, but let's think about like how this all makes us feel, and it's just like we don't have time for that,
Right.
So it's like, yeah, it's not that we all have
Yeah.
emotions, but it's like if everybody were heart centered, then nothing would happen.
Uh-huh. Right.
And it kind of ties into a conversation we had when we were talking about Barbie. One thing that's happening in society, or like one of the like negatives of heart center being rare, is that there is this thing of people feeling lost and like wondering where the juiciness comes out of life, and like where they want to go, and
Mm-hmm.
the feeling like a loose connection to their personhood, if that makes sense, or like
Right.
passion.
Yeah.
And so in that way, like it would do us right to do a little bit more of the emotions instead of just
Yeah.
doing the thing, because that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
for sure.
heart last like tidal wave. It's just like,
Yeah.
I'm not like, who am I, or like what am I, what excites me,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
like why
Mm-hmm.
the fuck am I doing this, like, yeah.
In David's overlaps, the heart center or like three is social.
Social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Social.
Mhm.
Social.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
You did
So
it.
there's yes, I knew. Anyway, it's about like what you're saying there is that that connection to personhood is there's an overlap there with social. It's like, who am I? It's why am I? And it's so we've talked about attachment versus hexad in that like being linear point, but I still think that it's like seven, for example, is like kind of doing whatever seven wants all the time. But I still think that seven, if you're like heart last, is going to get to the point where it's like, well, I've been doing whatever I want, but like, do I really want this? Like, I don't. It's almost like a sleep thing where it's like, what have I've there's a flurry of activity and thoughts, and I've kind of not really cared
Yeah.
about like people who are telling me to quiet down or do this or that. But like, what do I actually look like? Like, how do people see me? What does this make me? Like, if I look at myself in the
Yeah.
mirror in that portrait that I'm painting, what do I see? Like, what have I created? I've lived this whole life. Like, if you ask a heart type, like, what, like, who are you? Like they're kind of just your whole life. You're just sort of staring at that picture of yourself and being like, okay, well, I listened to this song, so I guess I should add that in there. Like, should I like delete this from the past? Is that part of me? Like, you know what I mean? You're just like crafting this sense of whatever who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A different way to say, or is something that I guess just something that comes to mind while you're saying that too, is that the image center or the heart center also has a lot to do with values, which is like where people get a lot of their identity from, or where people like really decide a lot of things. Like the phrase, if your heart is in it, is like, is this in accordance with my value? You know, like, am I being impassioned by this? So even you saying that, heart last, those that are heart last are probably more likely to be in something that their heart is not in, because they have like the last access to that. And that's not to say that like 2s and 3s and 4s, first or second, have not also gone that route, because 3 obviously has like a whole identity around it being defined by how other people see them instead of how they see themselves. But still, that phrase, your heart is in it, comes from being in accordance with your values, which comes from the heart center as well.
Yeah. And the 3s and all the heart types, even if they're doing something that is their heart isn't in, they're much more likely to be aware of that. Like it feels like when you have heart last, you're so like you get into this place of just like thinking about what you're doing, and then also calming down your nervous system a little bit, or like self-soothing in order to just like get through and just continue, that you forget like actually I can attack the shame, I can attack the hurt like by actually like just looking at it, you know, and then mold something. And that's like the image center, right? Like I'll mold my path, mold who I want to be, and I can just
craft this.
Yes, exactly. I can spend some time on this. Yeah.
I wonder if you think this is true. I'm trying to think, but like so if I'm thinking about 3s, for example, because we're talking about like, obviously 3s get into all kinds, or 3-fixers get into spaces that they're just like, wow, I realized my whole, they do like the sudden attachment, detachment. Like, I just have this job. I don't like it. I don't like my husband. I don't like it. And they go into this. But interestingly, I find that 3s, being heart types, are more aware of even asking that question, having that conversation, and then blowing things up than, say, somebody who's like heart last. It might take longer, or they might never even ask the question, or they might already assume that because that last center, it's not that it's not quite a blind spot, but it's almost like you're like, I kind of have that covered. Like, I don't want to look at it too much. You know what I mean? So you're just like, well, I don't need to think too much about my heart. Again, the example I used was 7, where it's like 7's, I've seen it many times where you're just like, oh, this person does whatever the fuck they want. You think that they're so in touch with themselves. And then when it comes down to it, like, you look at a 7 and all of a sudden they're crying. You're like, what the hell? What happened? Like, oh my God, I didn't thought you were fine. Like, you were happy to me. I thought you were really happy because you were just acting however you wanted to act. And now it's like, wait, there's my heart center coming up and telling me that I don't feel, my heart's not in it, right?
Yeah. Oh, so one thing to say to that is, I think Josh is the one that first said this, but it was something like, he used the wording Russian doll nested as far as the order the centers go. So in my case, I'm head. What am I? I'm body, then head, then heart. Yeah. So it'd be body gets first priority, and then once that is like regulated, then we go to head, and once that is regulated, then I have like the time and space to like acknowledge all the value stuff. Is my heart in it? Blah blah blah. But once my body gets uncomfortable again, I'm like ditching that and going back to trying to regulate my body. So it's kind of, that is how I see it in a lot of, I mean, I see it with every order too. Like body last also does that. They're regulating the body absolute dead last in response to prioritizing their image and their head center, and you know, vice versa with all the other stuff, or so on. With all the other stuff.
Like gut types will do that often, and it's so unfathomable to me. Like, I have my 964 friend that will say, my body doesn't want to do this. My body's uncomfortable with something that's happening and I don't know what it is. And I'm like, what the fuck did you just, what? Like, I don't understand, because for me, it's like, I have an almost completely unconscious, or the reason for which, emotional reaction to things, and I get reactive. And what I'm more aware of is, say, the head center justification, because you use that second one as a play zone, right? You're just like, I'll have some 4 reaction where I'm like mad at someone, and the reason I'm mad is because they're like, it's some 4 image thing where I'm like, I don't want this near me. It's disgusting. It's something that I'm even ashamed of admitting because it's so 4-ish. It's so I'll start doing 6 like super ego stuff, and I'll start like doing the head center, like, you know, these are my reasons and justifications for getting mad or whatever. And I'm more aware
I
of
do
that,
that
but
too.
I'm always, yeah, you're like in that secondary headspace. You're like, I can justify my 9 bullshit
Yeah.
right now. Like I got it.
Yeah.
I got,
Yes.
and I'm trying to do that, right? And then after that, it's just that one piece where I'm like, look, put the nail in the coffin, or just like make it like the ones I know, like ones can be argumentative, but at the end of the day, like ones, they're not going to sit there and go on and on. Like when it's done, it's
Hmm.
done. And it's like, okay, this is right and wrong. I'm not shifting. We're not arguing. It doesn't even matter how I feel or how you feel or what thoughts. It is what it is. And then I can go there after. And it's hard for me to stay maybe
Hmm.
too anchored in that place, because I'm still like, well, we can have more head conversation, or I can have more feelings about this. Um, but it's like, that's my cycle, is immediate, like, and I was just with my friend Elisa, who's the same order, like 3, 7, 8, and it's the same thing where it's like we will have to talk about heart and image stuff, and it's a lot of 7
Mm.
play and justification and head center later, and she'll come to these 8 sort of conclusions of like, you know what, I think I'm cutting that off, or I think that's done, I think I ended that. It's you think it would be just like so much more in your face, but it's not, because it's last. It's just this thing of like, okay, we're going to stop doing the heart and head. And so I see people all the time doing the opposite, where I'm just like, how do we have a conversation about what your body's going through? But that's like not the point of it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
funny from your perspective, because to me it's like so forward and obvious.
It feels like get your body. I mean, I have a second, so this is something that I feel like I actually consciously had to learn at some point. Like, I don't know, probably as a teenager and stuff. It's like I will feel better if I calm down my body, like, and just get out the fucking situation. If I feel like I'm on fire, I have to stop before I do anything else. And I know
Yeah.
from like just having friends who are gut last, at a certain point, I have to look at them and I'm like, okay, so when are you gonna fucking calm down? Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah.
It's just like this. This is the energy, like the
Yeah.
whole time, and it's just
Yeah.
getting worse
Yeah.
and worse and worse. And it's like, stop.
Yeah.
I don't even
Yeah,
want to
right.
talk about what you're talking about right now because you're scared, really, really
Yeah.
scared.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, speaking,
Yeah.
getting back to just, okay, so like if we're talking about centers last, like if we do like sort of an overview of what it kind of looks like to have, say, each center last, like to me, what you just said, like people who have gut center last, yeah, tend to be, it's almost like social sexual, I think makes it even worse. It's just, it tends to be like a buzzy, ungrounded energy of like, yeah, like a lot of talking and a lot of whatever, right? If you have heart last, well, we talked a lot about that, right? It can just be this sort of like gut head, like we can talk, we can be, but we can't like sit around and do too much of the kind of like wet feeling our shit, like in our emotions, right? Wet feeling our shit. What the hell did I just? Anyway,
I
No,
get it.
it's
So
true though.
I get
It
it.
is
So
wet. It
it's
is
so
wet.
true.
it's wet. Yeah,
It is so
like,
true.
wet.
So a quick,
Yeah.
just like as a
Yeah, go
quick
ahead.
thing, I just being with somebody that is a heart first, sometimes in our like interactions and stuff like that, when I'm stressed, I will go around body and head too often. And then John has to ask me, like, well, what do you feel? And I'm like, I think this is da da da. And he's like,
Yeah.
no, not what you're thinking. What are you feeling?
Yes,
What is
I've
like
literally-
your heart talking about
I
right
just-
now? And I'm still just like, I'm uncomfortable. And that's like, that's not a feeling. Like,
Yeah, I just had this conversation. Every time Lucas and I ever have any argument, it is me just being like where he's just like, I don't know what you want from me, and I need to know what emotion is coursing through your veins right now. And he'll just be like, nothing.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
it's over, it's gone, I ate it, I don't know, it dissipated.
Yeah,
And I'm just
yeah.
like, I don't,
Disappeared.
if I can't connect
Yeah.
with you there, if I know what you're feeling
Mhm.
and even what you're thinking, like those are my two, I know how to
Uh-huh.
respond to you and how to talk to you. I don't know what to do with your gut.
It's so weird because, at least from my point of view, I do know what I'm feeling. And I've tried to think about why am I like so reluctant to share, and it's because I'm afraid that it's going to stress me out in the head center and the body center.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yes, no, totally. To me, it just feels so, this is why I used that word earlier. It just feels so subjective and so erratic and so just like not grounded in anything that we can like use to actually solve a problem. But that's like my bias against it. And so I'm just like, I'm not going to tell you that I feel super offended and scared and annoyed.
Yes,
I don't know, like all of these emotions right now, because those are just like, those are not helpful things to feel. But of course, they are.
That's okay. That's the interesting thing,
my
because I'm
framing.
like, and maybe this is 4 too, but like for me, if you just said all of that stuff and I said all of my stuff, I'd be like, oh, well, then there's no reason to even have an argument. It's over.
Oh.
Now I know
okay,
how
well,
you
that's so
feel and
true.
how I feel, and we're coming at this, and it's just kind of like, oh, that's it. I don't have to do the 6 investigative work, and I know how you're feeling, so
Yeah.
what are we doing now?
I recommended this show to you guys group, and
Don't
it's
buy
basically
it.
a
Yeah.
group therapy show.
Go ahead,
And
sorry.
no, it's okay. And the entire thing is basically heart last. Like it's just like people
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
moment
very, yeah.
being like dealing with the fucking fear of like sharing what they're
Yes.
feeling. And then like oh my gosh, people get to know you better and you feel
Yeah.
fucking better
Yeah.
and you feel like you matter in the world. But you
Mhm.
can just see the terror in their faces and their
Yeah.
bodies and just all of the fucking angst. And it's just like,
Yes.
wow, like it does solve problems to share what your heart is feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine.
Even threes, like threes can be, again, threes
God.
attachment. It can, it's cold, it's chilly, it can seem fake, all that kind of stuff. But like threes will actually tell you how they're feeling. Is it actually how they're feeling? You'll never know. But you don't even really know that with 2 or 4 either. But they're going to
Yeah.
Right.
create some kind of emotional starting point for you to like, okay, let's have this conversation.
To navigate, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about 3 earlier about like attachment to disconnect or something like that, or like how they do it. I can't remember the context of it. I think you were saying that 3 will be aware that it's not in alignment with his values, but like have a lot of pain around it. Maybe that wasn't your
Yes.
verbiage,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's like what I'm
Something.
adding
Yeah.
to it. That's what it is. They will be like identified with the fact that they don't feel identified, but the attachment to disconnect will show up in their attempt to continue just trying to embody that, whatever
Yes.
their like mission is.
Yeah.
So if they're
Right.
like not in
Yeah.
alignment with their values in a real way, but they're trying to be what somebody else values, the attachment to disconnect comes in continuing to try to be that thing.
Yeah. And the
Anyway,
sadness
that was it.
behind I'm not really
The
who I
incongruence.
seem. The incongruence, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I just did a Princess Court yesterday actually with Lewis because we've been chatting
Oh, cool.
and we did it on the 3-4 area, so like something completely
Oh, cool.
unrelated. But it is interesting talking to him because it's sort of rare because he's heart, gut, head, so head
Yep.
last, which is also pretty rare, like head last just in general, because again, he's got heart first. But yeah, that's an interesting combo because it if like my order again has this sort of spinning wheel kind of energy, that's like the total opposite where it's like if you have heart and head or heart and why do I speak heart and fucking
I get
gut
it.
heart and gut
Yeah.
up front and you have head last, it's like okay, well, we're doing emotions and bodies but we're not processing head stuff here. We're just
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
being. Is it
Yeah.
Mhm.
is it one of you? Emeka keeps saying that one of you had a word. No, it's you, Alexandra, like creaturely or something. Was that you that said
Creaturely,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think another
there's
thing
like
that we said was like that stem head and heart is like very like we're looking at each other and we're very
Yeah.
silent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And
It's
to me,
not.
it gives me a little bit of anxiety sometimes. It's nice
Right,
because it's just
definitely.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I have the gut center and then
Yeah.
I'm forced to do the heart. But it's just like, why are we not talking? Like,
Yeah, totally. Where's the buzz? Because I'll do the emotions, but then
Mhm.
I can buzz your ear off. Like that's if I'm
Yeah,
anxious
yeah.
or I'm this or I'm whatever. It's like I have a lot to say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like that stem is very like serious, like a
Mhm.
serious lullaby or something like that. And gut and head feels very casual, maybe
Mhm.
too
Yeah.
casual almost. And
Yeah.
then, of course, like heart and head is just like super chaotic. There's a lot of things going on. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's something that's very just like serious or something
Still, yeah.
about head last. Yeah, still waters.
Mhm. I always try to conceptualize what it is with head, or try to just pinpoint what it is with head last that can make me so like, what's going on there? Like it almost feels like their navigational center, like their like inner GPS is like I can't track where they're going,
Mhm.
or like where they are in a certain way. And it's not the same way. Maybe I'm just speaking because my head center is reactive, but that's kind of the impression that I get with head last is there's a kind of sense of like, I don't know where, I don't know the direction you're going in a certain way. It kind of feels like They're just like there, and then they might disappear, and then they appear somewhere else. But I don't get the connection point of how you got from point A to point B. Does that make sense? Yeah,
Yeah,
like it's
it does
something,
make
it's like
sense.
not navigational in a certain way.
I think this is my weird I conceptualize these centers as like the gut center having kind of like a form and an energy, physical energy.
Yeah.
The head center as absolutely being about like movement and navigation, like you said. Like I just the head center to me is moving. It's going.
Yeah, it's like dynamic.
Dynamic, and the heart center is like, what color are we painting this room? Like what it's the color, it's the smell, what I don't know. It's the kind of complete perception of like, okay, we're looking at the whole picture. What does it look like? What do I feel when I look at this? What's it doing to me, really?
It's the aesthetic.
So if you're thinking about like, okay, well, which one of those things are missing? If you're kind of form and motion, that's what I was trying to say kind of earlier. It almost has this like, okay, we're going, we're moving, we're thinking, we're feeling. I don't know, whatever. I'm using the word feeling, but like in the body.
I get it. Yeah.
If you're missing head, then you're like, okay, well, we're kind of like, you're just decorating the room. You have the form of the room, gut, and now you're just like making it smell nice and look nice and staring at it, and you're not moving out of it. You're not moving around. And if you're missing if you're missing the form, that's when you're just kind of like this, okay, well, I'm looking at something that's like almost not even there, because it's like I can't look at this whole picture because I don't have the form, I don't have the centering in the gut center, but I also have a lot of motion going on. So it is this kind of almost self-pres blind style reaction of like, I have a lot of feelings and I have a lot of things to move around with those feelings.
Yeah, there's something still always with body that it feels like where I can get lost with body last is I feel like those people can get lost in concepts a little bit too much, and not come back down to like a grounded kind of practical place. And again, there's like blurred lines here between body last and like self-pres blind or something like that. But even people with like John is that kind of, John's body last too. And he can, or at least from my perception, and he can definitely get lost in like the realm of like symbols and emotions and thoughts and and kind of like forget that he's like a person trapped in space and time, and like, where are you within this moment? There's a kind of like presence, I think, that comes from the body, not presence in like the inner work way, but like, here you are kind of thing.
Yeah.
That I think body last can get a little lost in that for me, of just like, whoa, where are you? Where are you?
Because you've lost your sense of like literally meanness, right? That's what the body is. Who am I? Who are you physically? Am I a separate being or not? Am I just energy in the air, or am I like this flesh thing that's like separate?
Yeah.
And maybe this is like too 9 biased, or I don't know, but it feels like to me like body last sometimes feels like they forgot that they're like they're part of the earth or something. Like, you're supposed to be here, you're not just like you're not just a story, it feels like, or you're just like
not just a story is so good.
That's good. No, that is good. Yeah, because it's like so the words and the pictures, but no book or something.
Like you're here with us, we're with you, we're like you're breathing.
And also there's just and there's just something more base, like body center is like the most like here it is, your gut knowing of something. And that's sometimes where I can get lost with the body last people. It was like, but what is your gut impression? It doesn't have to be justified through the heart or through the head. What is just like your boom, this is what I know to be true? Where's your embodiment in this moment? That's like, I think what the body center is really good for. It's just like, what do you just believe with no justification?
It's unchanging. It's just there already. Again, it's like the form. It's just this block. It's just kind of like static, and it's grounded.
You know what the impression that body last has is that like a hug wouldn't make it better. You know what I mean? It's just like, would a hug make it better? No.
Oh, that's good. No.
That's really good.
No, but that's actually, it's a good point, because stuff like that, and again, okay, this is me being self-pres blinded for whatever, but like there are times where I'm doing heart and head, and then somebody like, I like spending time with nines, because it's just like, you'll just get a hug and you're like, okay. Like, you're just like, oh wow, that was it. I needed a hug, I needed a foot massage, I needed somebody to touch me, or just like I needed some weird sense of grounding. Yeah, but you're just like,
So you need
oh,
to be in a
okay,
room with
thoughts
with
gone.
like nice candles
Yeah,
around and like a
yeah.
soft little music thing going on, like a comfy blanket. Just, I mean, this is
Totally,
very
yeah.
nine
It's the
fix, but like,
sensuousness.
just go back into the womb.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
just for a second.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know if you guys have found this, but like as I've gotten older, I've gotten more in touch with that, with my
Yeah,
last fix where I am, yeah, I'm realizing that I just, it's hard. It's gotten really hard, but sometimes I'm like, okay, you're like, heart ahead just spins on a wheel forever. And you're like, I really need to stop, especially 4-6. I need to stop and just like get into some kind of like access my one fix. It's like, what is it telling me about this whole situation? What can I not argue my way out
yeah,
of? What can I not feel my way out of? What's just true?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that's coming to mind too is if we use this, I don't know, I can't remember the word, but if we use the like archetype of a story,
Hmm.
then the heart center,
Hmm.
body center, and head center could be representative of different things. Like the heart center
Yeah.
could be like the description of the character, like,
Hmm.
Yeah,
the character itself.
Hmm.
The narrative, maybe the direction that it's going could be the head center, and then the
Hmm.
body center would be like, the character, like the character here I am right now, not just like
yeah,
what
the
I'm going to be
archetype, and
described
then
as in a book. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
The
yeah.
unchanging truth of whatever is occurring.
Yes, there
Yeah.
we go. Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about that even in terms of being heart last, specific, or being image last is I think what feels more relevant. And it does. I really don't spend much time thinking about like what would my character, if I was like written in a play or something, what would the description of
Oh,
Alexandra
it's like
be?
all
I
I
really
do.
don't think about that very much. See, maybe that's what it is. And the threes that I
Yeah.
know, and the fours that I know, and I don't know very many twos, but that does seem to be like the forward focus of the
It's
heart center.
subconscious. It's not, this is
hmm
me, like after years of being like, okay, I'm image type, like what does that mean? I would never have said this, but yeah, I think I spend a very large part of my thinking process. Like I'm trying to give like a micro example of like I talked about this with Lewis. Like I can't remember because we've had so many good conversations. We talked about the heart center, but it's like everybody might be able to relate to this. But when you're heart forward, it's like you'll see like a shirt, the first question you're like, is this me? Am I this shirt?
Yeah,
Can I wear this
yeah,
shirt?
yeah.
So then, and then maybe you put on the shirt and you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, like you kind of like, I gotta take out my like easel and like look at
Mm-hmm.
who I
How it
am,
fits.
and then
Yeah.
who I
Oh God.
thought I was before, and now I'm looking at me in the shirt and going, okay, it, should I take this and add it to this? Can I be the guy that wears this shirt or not?
Yeah.
And then if you are the guy that wears this shirt, you're like, I will burn this store down. I don't care how much the shirt is, because there's nothing more important than adding
Oh
something
gosh.
like
Collecting it.
fueling
Mhm.
whatever it is. So say
I
maybe,
need
okay, so
some of
this
that.
is
Damn.
this is a very like 3-4 area object focused example. I think for the 2-3 area, it's going to be much more people focused. Like, am I the person who gives this advice, or the person who does something for the, like, it's more, you know what I mean? So I much more relate to this kind of area, but that's like the best way I can describe it. Like, you're just constantly like, I listen to this song. Do I like this song? Do I like this artist now? Okay. Like, what does that mean?
What does it
And
say
again,
about
this
me?
is,
Wow.
yeah, it's a super, super subconscious that it's like a constant rolling, rapid
Yeah.
thought of adjustment. And, and so what's so hard for heart types is, I'm sure you see this with John, but it's like, if you are in an environment that's not congruent with the painting, like you're like, I'm taking this environment, I'm looking at the painting, it doesn't work, I need to get this out now. I can't be here. I can't be sitting here. I can't even be looking at you. Can't have this conversation. I can't be wearing this. Can't be in this room. Whatever it is, that's like, I got to get the hell out of here because it's so incongruent. And you're just like, I'm nothing else right now except this fucking painting. So I got to get out and find a place that matches what I've drawn for myself. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm not me if I'm not this.
What it feels like to be heart last, or like 3 last, is that I only become aware of this when I'm already in the fucking room and I'm like embarrassed, like that, and that's why I fucking hate.
And it must be like a weird, like tidal wave of like,
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm so upset right now, or
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
in this room and it just feels below me in some way, and I'm like, oh, am I like a like egotistical person or what the fuck? Or like, or I'm like
yeah,
not as well dressed as like, or you're underdressed or something, and you're like, oh my
yeah,
God,
right, yeah.
I need to run away. Like,
And all of a sudden,
but
yeah.
Yeah.
but
Yeah, what I'm thinking of is I think of it in terms of like I'm just not updating myself that much. And maybe there's some OPS stuff that comes in here too, but I'm just like not updating myself that much. I will have like, okay, I like this song and then I just don't think about it. And then I like this this shirt and I just don't think about it. But then what I'm thinking of is like, okay, what would my Pinterest board, how would I define that genre?
What's my look?
All the
And it's
random
social
shit that I've
too.
collected.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yes,
Which is why making collages is, I think, such an interesting experience, probably for people who are image last, because it's like almost the closest thing you can get to being like, oh, I just put all this stuff together and I can't stop. Like when you could make like 100 collages, and by the time you've made, not 100, what the fuck, I don't know why I said, but like by the time you've made like 5 collages, 6 collages, you're like, I keep doing the same thing, sort of.
I know, yeah.
I can't stop doing this thing. And then you look at it and you're like, this is me. This is
that's totally
a collection
right.
of, yeah.
No, that's totally right. There was a while in the group that people were doing like the collage challenges of like everybody make a like monochromatic, I don't know the word, purple one, make a purple one. And I remember going through those and I made so many that just like sucked, but I do remember having like 4 or 5 that I'm like, wow, I love this. Is like me. This is like if I was a person, I would show them this. If I like needed to be created into a person, I would show them this, and then they would make
your
me.
heart center. And they're not, and they're you'll find that like I've made like a 10 now, and if you see many, like it's really just variations on a theme, and it's like because I found like when you're like I found. When you look at that one
texture,
that's so perfect, and you're like, oh, this is me. I don't want to make this is it's just going to be variations on this because this is the most distilled version of my image that I could possibly present or make, and I'm not going to create anything else.
Oh, that's so good.
Yes, that's very true. Because when I was trying to figure out, when I was trying to figure out what my last fix was or whatever, whether it was 3-wing 2 or 3-wing 4, I had the hardest time with it. Like I just couldn't figure it out. And then what took me over the edge was my collages. I was like, oh, I guess I really do value pain or something. There's something always a little bit tragic in all of these photos or these collages. So
and they were, I remember your collages. They were, for social sexual, they were again like object oriented. Beautiful bodies and things, and it's not to say that like it's hard to explain because like a 2-3 area collage can still be beautiful and have beautiful things in it, but there is just this sense, even in the last place, of some kind of interpersonal energy. I mean, we've seen collages in the 2-3 area that are like, I don't know, like pregnant women or children or families or even if it's dark, there's something in there that's like, oh, there's some kind of people-focused energy. But you can see a social sexual collage that's heartless, that doesn't, I mean, yours did have people in them, but they're still just like, I don't know, explain. The people were like beautiful objects with like light on them, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was this,
people focused. Yeah.
Yeah.